Hey ladies, impending doom, right, really makes you do stuff. Emphasis on the stuff. You see, I'm being hunted by this guy. Yeah, relatable, I know. And if I'm gonna be killed soon, I'm gonna make a video about Resident Evil 3 before that happens.
I'm going to get you, okay?
Hang on.
So, this game exists. Now, time to talk about this game's history. Originally, the game was going to be set on a cruise ship where you played as Hunk from Resident Evil 2, trying to secure a sample of the G-Virus. However, Capcom cancelled the project after the PS2 was announced, and due to an exclusivity deal with numbered RA games on Sony consoles, they decided to make a new game following Jill Valentine and her experience in the Raccoon City outbreak, and they named it RE3. This game was developed alongside Resident Evil Code Veronica and was released to critical acclaim. Now that I've finished talking about the history, it's story time. The game takes place just before and after the events of Resident Evil 2, allowing it to elaborate on the events of the Raccoon City outbreak. The game follows Jill Valentine from the first game as she attempts to escape Raccoon City as a deadly monster known as the Nemesis attempts to hunt her and her fellow STARS members. Along the way, she meets Carlos and the rest of the UBCS, a group of mercenaries who work for Umbrella. One of these mercenaries is Carlos, and together him and Jill work together to escape the city as well as defeat the Terminator-like Nemesis. The game ends with the US government nuking Raccoon City. The game has many more locations in Resident Evil 2, however, they are a lot smaller, but this doesn't matter as they still feel memorable and add more to the world of Resident Evil. These locations include the streets of Raccoon City itself, the police station from Resident Evil 2, the clock tower, the hospital, the park, and the Dead Factory. My favourite of all these is the Dead Factory, as it really makes you feel like you're in a place that you should not be visiting, due to its creepy music. The Dead Factory also has a very interesting backstory, as it was a place where Umbrella did experiments on unaware trespassers. Now that we've talked about the game's story, let's talk about the game's gameplay. Resident Evil 3's gameplay is similar to the other games, however, it has some slight differences. Resident Evil 3 is a lot more action-focused than previous games. The game forces you to deal with more enemies at once and introduces new features such as the emergency evade and explosive barrels. Now, the explosive barrels are useful, however, the emergency evade isn't as much. Yeah, sometimes this works, but sometimes it doesn't. Even if you get the timing right, you can just end up dodging into a worst position, or even sometimes you still get hit. It's just too inconsistent and it annoys me a lot. The game also introduces the live selection feature, which allows the players to make certain choices which change the order of events. This is to incentivize multiple playthroughs. I'm assuming this feature was used to replace the A and B scenarios of Resident Evil 2. However, while it is a fun feature, it just didn't grip me enough to do a second playthrough. However, I do want to clarify that the live selection feature is still fun. The most iconic new feature is the Nemesis. The Nemesis is this lovely pile of skin. Throughout your playthrough, he will appear to chase you down, and you can either fight him or run away. I really enjoy the fight or flight gameplay he introduces. However, I don't believe he matches the quality of enemies like the Crimson Heads from Resident Evil 1 Remake. However, I do have a problem with Nemesis, and that is its frequent use as a boss fight, so let's use this as an excuse to segue to the bosses. So yeah, this might not be a popular opinion, but I'm not a big fan of the boss fights in this game. Now first of all, let's talk about the Nemesis fights. These are pointless. The entire point of fighting Nemesis when he is stalking you is the reward you get for the risk you take. So my problem is when the game forces you to fight him in his big scary tentacle, it loses the entire reason Nemesis is threatening. If I was the developer, I would give the player the option to solve a time-consuming puzzle in the boss arena while Nemesis is chasing you. This means that for those who are more interested in violence, well, they could fight him, while those who don't want to fight him could do a puzzle while he chases you down. Oh yeah, I almost forgot about the Gravedigger. He basically is just a big worm who constantly stun locks you until you have very little health, and he mostly attacks your screen. Oh yeah, and they reuse his boss fight. The only boss I actually enjoyed was the fight against the mutated Nemesis, as it required skill, and it became gradually more intense as the timer counting to the strike of the nuclear missile got shorter.
You want stars? I'll give you stars.
Unfortunately, the game's bosses make the game fall short at times, but how about the game's aesthetic? The game's graphics have been given a slight upgrade compared to RE2, as the backgrounds have lots of small details which make it look like a place people live in, and the textures on the enemies are very detailed, especially compared to the blocky yellow zombies from Resident Evil 2. The game's music is great as well, as it gives a very tragic yet sinister atmosphere to the game, which I really like. Even compared to Resident Evil 2, the music feels very dark. I like to imagine the music was playing in Jill's head as she watched the city that she tried to protect crumble. Here are some of my favourite tracks. Overall, I believe this game's style and presentation is great and arguably the best part of the game. In my personal opinion, a lot of Resident Evil 3's praise relies heavily on nostalgia, and I find it hard to believe that people genuinely think Nemesis is this perfect enemy that all stock enemies should look up to. However, my problem with Nemesis doesn't stop Resident Evil 3 from being one of the best Resident Evil games due to its excellent atmosphere and variety of locations. If you liked my video, then feel free to subscribe and turn on notifications. I'd really appreciate it. And if you didn't like it, tell me why in the comments below, as I would love to see people's opinion on this. Anyways, this has been Ego Productions, and I hope you have a great day.